Let's be honest, when you hear the word hacker, what's the first image that pops into your head? Probably some shadowy figure in a hoodie, right? Surrounded by glowing green text? It's a cool image, but it's mostly Hollywood fiction. So today, we're going to dive into what the hacker mindset really is, because it's so much more interesting and, honestly, way more useful than the myth. So let's get this straight from the get-go. Over here, we've got the myth, the digital criminal, the movie villain. But the reality, the thing we're actually talking about today, is that hacking is really a philosophy. It's a mindset that's all about intense curiosity and a totally unique way of solving problems. It's not so much about breaking laws as it is about breaking our own assumptions.
Okay, so for our first section, we're going beyond the hoodie. Let's start deconstructing that stereotype and really get to the bottom of this.
So here it is, the core definition. At its heart, the hacker mindset is this: relentless drive. It's not enough to just use something. It's about a deep need to understand how it works, what its limits are, and this is the really cool part, how it can be used in ways its designers never ever dreamed of. It's basically critical thinking on steroids.
Okay, so we've got a definition. Now let's build on it. In our second section here, we're going to break down the core components, the pillars of hacking. The absolute foundation, the engine that powers this whole thing, is curiosity. Pure and simple. A hacker just refuses to accept black boxes, those things that just work, and you're not supposed to ask why. They don't just use technology, they interrogate it. They live for the edge cases, those weird extreme situations most of us never even think about. And I love this last point. For most of us, a locked door is a barrier. It's a stop sign. For a hacker, it's just a mechanism, a puzzle to be understood. This is pretty much the internal monologue that's running 24/7. Instead of seeing a big button that says, "Do not press," and just walking away, a hacker's mind immediately starts firing off these questions. It's not about being destructive, it's about a deep need to understand the rules of the system by poking at its boundaries.
And all that curiosity gets channeled through a really specific method: first principles thinking. So instead of using an analogy, like saying a new social media app is kind of like Facebook, a hacker deconstructs it. They strip it down to its most fundamental truths. They want to understand the physics of the system, not just read the user manual. And that's what lets them put the pieces back together in totally new ways.
And this approach naturally leads to lateral thinking. A linear thinker sees that the front door is fortified and that's it. Game over. They give up. But the hacker's mind is already moving. Okay, front door is a no-go. What about the window? No? How about that ventilation shaft? The goal is always to find the side door, that unconventional solution everyone else missed because they were too busy staring at the obvious path.
This constant search for a side door brings us to a really powerful idea, and it's all about how you look at setbacks. Because for a hacker, what we call failure is just data.
Just think about how powerful this is for a second. Most of us see failure as an end point, right? Something to avoid at all costs. But a hacker sees it as a signpost. Every failed attempt isn't a defeat. It's a new piece of information. It tells you one thing that doesn't work, which gets you that much closer to the one thing that will.
And this all happens inside a constant, rapid cycle, the iterative loop. It's really just the scientific method on overdrive. You come up with a hypothesis, you test it, and when it inevitably fails, you don't get upset. You analyze it. You ask, okay, why did that fail? What did that error message really just tell me? And then you refine your approach and go again. It's just a relentless process of learning. Now, all this looping and testing might sound exhausting, but here's the fun paradox. It's actually driven by a very clever kind of laziness. Hackers can't stand doing repetitive, boring tasks. If they have to do something more than twice, they'll happily spend hours writing a script to automate it forever. It's all about working smarter, not harder, taken to the absolute extreme.
But of course, with this kind of knowledge comes a huge responsibility. The mindset itself is just a tool, a really powerful one. The morality, the right or wrong of it, comes from how you decide to use it, and that brings us to the ethical crossroads. And this is why ethics are just so critical. When you adopt this mindset, you start to see the flaws, the loopholes, and the vulnerabilities in everything around you. And I don't just mean software. I mean social systems, businesses, everything. The world really does start to look like a collection of unlocked doors.
So the whole thing boils down to intent. A white hat hacker uses this mindset to find flaws so they can be fixed. They're like the immune system of our digital world. They're builders. A black hat, on the other hand, uses the exact same skills to exploit those flaws for their own gain. They're a parasite, a vandal. Same mindset, but polar opposite goals.
So, what does any of this mean for you? Well, in our final section, we're taking this whole idea out of the digital world, because the real power of the hacker mindset isn't about computers, it's about how you can apply it to your own life.
I think this is such a fantastic way to put it. Most of us kind of just go through life accepting the default settings we're given by society, by our jobs, by our own habits. A hacker questions those defaults. They look at them and ask, wait a minute, is there a better way? Can this system be optimized?
And you can see this way of thinking everywhere now. We see it in biohacking, where people analyze and tweak their own biology for better health. We see it in learning hacks, finding faster ways to pick up new skills. And of course, the whole idea of life hacks, those clever, unconventional solutions to everyday problems. It's all the same mindset.
Ultimately, that's what the hacker mindset is. It's an invitation. It's an invitation to stop being a passive user of the systems around you and to start becoming an active developer of your own life, your career, your own reality. It's about taking control.
And so that's the final question we'll leave you with. If you start to see the world as one giant, complex system, full of bugs and inefficiencies, sure, but also full of incredible potential, what part of it are you going to choose to understand, to deconstruct,